Welcome to the She's an Asset podcast. This podcast is for the woman who is successful on the outside, but knows she's meant for so much more on the inside. Here we talk about leadership, intuition, and the kind of power that changes everything. If you are ready to become the most powerful version of yourself, then this is for you. Welcome home. Welcome to the She's an Asset podcast.
My name is Autumn Schmidt, and I'm really excited for today's guest. Today, we are all about talking about resilience, women's empowerment, and pivoting. Sarah, please tell everybody who you are.
My name is Sarah Sullivan. I am a consultant and brand strategist, as well as brand photographer for female business owners, but I have worked over the past decade or more with about a dozen different industries. So I have a lot of different skills, but I've tried to consolidate them into consulting.
I'm really excited to get to know you. So here's what you need to know is Sarah and I, we met at the Maine Women in Business. We did some after hours at Catface
Cafe.
Yeah.
Biddeford,
And I think that's where I met you,
yes,
right?
It is.
And I reached back out because we're coming back up for an event in April in Bangor. And Sarah has a studio in Bangor, which is where we are. But other than that, I don't know that much about you. So I'm thrilled because usually like a lot of times I'll know my guests. And so like I ask these redundant questions, but I don't really know any of your answers. So this is exciting. So can you tell us, so you do a lot of beautiful, like this studio is stunning.
Thank you.
Your photography is beautiful. Your branding is just beautiful. Can you bring us back to like, how did you get started, Sarah?
Well, do you want the long story? Or
We got time. We got time, girl.
So when I was young, when I was in high school, I've always really had an eye for art and marketing, and I loved it since I was a little girl. And when I was in high school, I thought I was going to become a dermatologist, but dermatologist, yeah, because I grew up with my mother and grandmother. They raised me. I'm born and raised in Maine, central Maine, and my mother and grandmother. My mother, came overseas with my grandmother and her brothers and sisters, and they went through the war in Germany. And so my mother and grandmother, two very strong, resilient women, raised me. But with that came a lot of different challenges. And I could see my mother, who was an artist, because my grandfather was an artist, so she really got that from him. She struggled to make money, and she did everything she could to provide for us when it came to the arts. But I had always associated, because of my upbringing with art equating to no money, essentially.
Yes.
And so I had this really deep hustle, and I was very much against art, even though I was one of the artistic students in my class. Like, that was one of the awards I remember receiving in school and high school, was just like most artsy. And I was like,
wow.
Okay,
That's incredible.
This does say something. And so I was just really resistant to that, because I grew up so poor and I really wanted to know what success and stability and security felt like. We had always lived in an apartment, and a beautiful one at that. Like, my mother and grandmother, they always had a really wonderful way of being able to connect with others, no matter your wealth status, no matter whoever you are, and bringing in warmth and food and love and art and culture.
I love that.
And so when people came over to my house, I'd have friends come over. It did not necessarily appear that we didn't have the funds. I remember going to the grocery store with my mom, and my mom looking at me and talking to me in German, saying, "Ich hab kein Geld," which basically means, I'm sorry if I just completely botched that for those of you who are completely fluent in German, but "Ich hab kein Geld" means I don't have the money. And so it was the little things like some cereal. And so I really grew this strength in me and this desire to help my mom. She also suffered from various mental disorders, unfortunately. And we all have something, right?
I was going to say, girl.
It was really a journey that I had to, in my 20s, kind of look at and dissect a little bit more to realize, why I am the woman that I am. And I had to really develop at a young age, parental figure and resilience. So
Yes.
that role came easily to me, and it's part of the reason why I do what I do today, so naturally.
Well, first of all, you have amazing skin, so I can see
Oh
the
my goodness.
dermatologist.
That's so fun.
And it's interesting when I hear you talk about art, and I love that because I can see that from being in your studio and just watching what you do. You really bring art to life, maybe in a way that you never anticipated when you were younger. But your girl couldn't even, I can't even color in the lines. Like, did you paint that and that?
Oh my goodness. So I host now. This is so funny how the world, you evolve, and the things that you resist the most sometimes end up being what you love the most.
Always.
And you just have to kind of like sit in the uncomfortable and test it and say, is there something more to this resistance that I'm feeling? And I started to host art workshops in this studio space.
Wow.
And so that's what you're seeing around us.
And that's how you got started? Is that how you got started? Like, tell me. So, like, how did you get started with like the photography?
Yeah. So going back to, I wanted to become a dermatologist. And then last minute I pivoted because my art teacher, she was amazing. My senior year, she was like, Sarah, I really think you should kind of think about marketing and photography. And so I ended up taking a Mid-Maine Technical Center program, which was attached to my high school. And some of the first photos I took were actually with the film camera, and we had to develop film
I remember those
the
days.
studio, and it was just so wonderful. And I remember taking photos of the baking, the culinary arts portion, and loving the food photography. And I was working as a sandwich artist at the time too, another job at Subway, and the owners had a couple of different locations, and they were involved heavily in the FAF marketing team.
Wow.
Which basically brings all of the members together from the Subway franchise owners. They all get together and they meet with larger agencies, and they go over basically marketing for Subway and how they're going to do that. And so I had a project through the Maine Technical Center that I ended up getting where I had to replicate the food photography on the walls, and I did that successfully. And so that was really fun because it allowed me to realize that there's strategy in art as well, and to try to kind of pursue that more. I didn't end up going to college because my mother came down with cancer. And so I decided to stay home and kind of help there. And that's when I started working with some local businesses in central Maine at the age of 17. And I was doing their photography, and that led into their website design and development, which led into their marketing. And I kind of had this beautiful snowball effect from something that was this hidden passion. And it was just developing into a business naturally for me.
That's incredible. And to me, like, that's the universe.
Yeah.
Or God, whatever, everybody says it differently,
For
but
sure.
100%, like, you pivoted. And I talk a lot about that too. I talk a lot about the pivot. We were talking a little bit about that. I have pivoted so much in my life, and we're going to talk about it because it sounds like you're kind of pivoting present day. We're not there in your story yet, but we're getting there. And yeah, so, but you know what I love so much about you is it sounds like you really listen to your gut.
I do. It's something that is kind of like a muscle that you have to grow over time. Yes. And like usually that comes with hard felt lessons that you have to learn, but for sure.
Yeah, the hard felt lessons when we don't listen.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but the universe will kick my ass.
Yeah.
It'd be like, Autumn, this way, dummy. You know what I mean? Dude, I've told you this. I'm like, oh man. I'm sorry to hear about your mom. It's incredible how at 17 years old, though, you were in doing this, the photography and the website.
And she is better now, by the way. She is better, which is wonderful. But it was a really long journey, and I just realized the power of the natural, like what was kind of my conditioning growing up. We all have situations in our early development as children that really grow us into the person that we are today. And we can take those skills or those situations that have happened to us, and we can either decide, I'm going to make something from this, or I'm going to let it overcome me. Mm-hmm. And I'd much rather learn something and grow and use that as a skill, like all the things, all the resilience that was built up. I use that word a lot, but it's just so true and so important.
So important.
Yeah.
Okay, so here you are, you're 17, and now you didn't go to dermatology school.
No, my goodness, no.
Right? And you're doing the thing and you're working for businesses. And is that what you've done? Like, how old are you now?
I'm 30. I just turned 30.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
You look incredible.
Thank you.
So is that what you've been doing since you've been 17, or like,
Yeah.
tell me?
Yeah, I mean, I had part-time jobs on like I had some part-time positions, but I always had my business on the side. And so my business became full-time in 2017. And
Wow.
it was my one thing I knew at that time. I was TAing here and there for media, and then I was also helping over at the Jackson Laboratory in between two departments with like this really fun opportunity that I had to just like fill in as an intern, paid, and learning all of the different things about mice. It's one of the largest laboratories in the world, apparently.
Yep.
And I learned a lot of lessons, and actually something that really stood out to me with that job, and this is kind of going off topic, but it was just such a really profound moment, was I had to take pictures of lab mice, and I was very young. I was like 21 at the time. And I was doing a cover for the magazine with lab mice at the Jackson lab. And when we were done with taking photos of the mouse, lady said, all right, it has to get euthanized now. And I was like, what do you mean you're not killing this little mouse? What? And she said to me, she said, oh, it's okay. It just served its purpose. This was its purpose. And it really stood with me. It was like, okay, instead of seeing something as like a tragedy, you do have the opportunity to see it as something that is, a positive impact.
Yeah.
More so than a tragedy.
Yeah.
And that has I've taken that with me in situations where maybe I didn't get the client that I wanted to get, and it's like, well, it just wasn't the right fit for me. And having that faith, or like you said, a belief in a higher power, that has really helped me keep going. Like, I believe in like a high positive energy, and everything does kind of have a reason why it happens. And just having faith in that, and having faith in general, has helped me along the years.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And I love that we went off and talked about the mice, because that story is like making me tear up too. I'm like, oh my God. But if we're talking about mice. But anyways.
I know, now my cats kill mice. I was like, don't do it.
I know. My dog just ate a mouse last week. So, but yeah, wow, powerful.
Hey, real quick, what are you doing on April 10th? Do you want to hang out with me in the Bangor, Maine area? We are having our second She's an Asset event. And I'm really excited to be able to be in your ears and offer you the early bird pricing. Because you're a loyal listener, all of the information is right in the show notes. If you are interested in coming and hanging out in person, I'd love to see you.
Okay, so Sarah, you, in my mind, it seems like you've built quite a business, and it seems like you've done a lot of things. Tell me what it's, I know you're pivoting, we're going to get there, but like, what has it been like? Like, in 2017, you went full time running your own business?
I think the majority of my 20s was learning how to pivot and learning how to be really uncomfortable, to then discover who it is that I am, who is Sarah, going through who I thought I had to show up as, because that's who I showed up as my whole life.
Yes.
With having to kind of be the caregiver of my mother for the longest time, not only, spiritually and financially, but I was all that she had. And so I kind of put my energy everywhere else as I was growing. And I tried to, what really helped me grow my business was I tried to have this mindset of give it a shot, try something once, and put your all into that thing, and lead with passion and conviction. And it got me really far. I had a lot of people that would come up to me and they would say, wow, when you talk about something, you're really shining, like you shine. And it was because I realized that going full time and doing something that helps other people really filled my bucket. And so again, kind of finding something that I was conditioned to have growing up, a skill I was conditioned to have growing up, helping people navigate and guiding them in their thought processes and decision making. And that really became something that I was good at through marketing and photography.
And so is that what you have done? Like, so when we say you went into business for yourself, was it both of them, like the photography and the marketing?
It was everything. And that's the fun part. It's
Okay,
about
tell me it all.
saying like yes to everything in the beginning. So when you're first starting a business, this is something I see all the time with entrepreneurs, specifically in any of the media or arts world, is when they are in the industry of marketing and media, they usually wear all of the hats before they can even grow a team, right? And then they realize, oh, I really probably shouldn't be juggling all this by myself. And so for me, the most important things were building relationships with my community and genuine ones, and using my intuition to then say, are these people that I could really see helping? And also, what am I growing? How am I growing, and what am I learning while working with them? Is this something that's filling my bucket, but also like my mental toolbox, is what I like to call it.
I love that. So do you have one that you like better? Marketing, website, photography, painting. Do you have any that you like better?
Yeah. So I think everything these days really works hand in hand. It's like an ecosystem. I like to call like the world of marketing these days, businesses and branding. It's all one ecosystem, and you can't really have one without the other. And I find that each and every one of them have little pieces I really enjoy. And I just love storytelling. And I think everything is just encompassed in storytelling and how you're authentically sharing who you are, your mission, what you want to bring into other people's lives. And that is like the major question a lot of my clients are asking me these days is, how can I show up when there's so much overwhelm that I am seeing and I'm in every day on social media? I feel like we get flooded with this idea of how can we be like others, because we're constantly comparing ourselves, when the most important thing is finding what your needs are within, and kind of tuning in with your nervous system and asking yourself, is this really in alignment with the path I want to grow into?
So good.
Yeah.
And so how do we stand out?
Again, checking in with yourself. Like, your body holds all of the answers, and you really, I think, using your gut instinct as a tool, that intuition that you have leading with that, is the most important thing that you can do. When you're off alignment, you will tell, like, you'll know when you're off alignment or off your path, because you'll start to get the ick, essentially. It will just feel kind of forced. You'll have resistance to something. Where this shows up a lot of the time in the work that I do now as a consultant with my clients is how others perceive us. I think that's the number one fear that most people have, is perception.
Yes.
Putting themselves out there, being vulnerable in a way that's also professional if you're a business owner. And how do you balance that, right?
Yes.
And so I think that if we can overcome the fear of being seen, then we can really start to see expansive growth.
I'm just sitting here in like my own path, in my own growth. When I felt like I was really seen, I wasn't. It was I had a part that I allowed people to see. So I was injured in the line of duty as a police officer, and I pivoted and became a coach for law enforcement. And then specifically, I niched down to coaching female officers. And during that time, I had a book full of clients. We did retreats. We did 5 retreats in Maine, which was really cool. And this podcast was just for female cops. So like there's a whole chunk of like just these episodes just for the female cops. And I was so like, it was just flowing to me. I had a podcast episode releasing every day. My content was insane because it was just so like, I just knew it. So it flowed. But I think, to your point, because I wasn't allowing all of me to come through. It was just this one part. I got bullied. The internet tried to cancel me. And when I say that, like
What year was
hundreds,
this? Do you know?
2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, the internet came for me and they tried to cancel me. And it did work for a few months. I mean, and it got so bad that they would call, like where I was speaking,
Mm-hmm.
they would call different conferences to try to get me to not be a speaker. But I tell you all of that because here's what I think and here's how I look at it is I just wasn't being fully seen. I was just allowing that one part, that law enforcement part who got hurt, who's now this coach. But there's so much more to me.
Yeah.
And that fall caused me to heal. I had to heal. Like I had to really heal. And so now, right, so we're having an event in Bangor, and I'll have 100 or 200 women that I'm going to stand in front of and I'm going to tell them that story.
Yeah.
Right. But I wouldn't have that ability in my mind if the universe didn't like try to knock me back into alignment. So this idea that you're saying about being seen, I just resonate on such a level because it is terrifying. Why is this so hard for us?
I think to your point there's something that came to me when you were saying that, like, if you hadn't gone through that challenge, you wouldn't have gotten those beautiful lessons that now you're able to actually teach
Right.
other people. And so that's the blessing there.
100%.
Yeah. Right. A lot of us have gone through judgment or expectations of how society wants us to be instead of being taught how to find who we are. And I think finding who we are actually comes from the tough places that we've been and all the things that we've gone through. And this shared connection when people can say, oh, I went through that too. And then more and more people, as I'm sure you saw when you started sharing your stories, were saying, I can relate to that as a female officer, as somebody who has a loved one who serves as an officer or whatever that might be. And then it's just this beautiful spiral effect of then saying, okay, I am able to, how do you validate yourself though? Is the next question.
Good question. How do you validate yourself? How do you validate yourself?
What I like to do is I like to take a moment to reflect on all the things that I have accomplished without judgment. Because especially as women, I find that somebody can say, oh my goodness, I like your hair. But then all of a sudden it's, oh yeah, but my hair's not washed today. Or, oh, but I need to get more of my roots touched up. Or, oh, I haven't like cut it in like months. And it's, instead of just taking something and hearing it for that one thing, like somebody can say to us, oh my goodness, I love X, Y, and Z about your business, and then and this, but I would also love to hear a little bit more about your, I don't know, how you survived this tragedy or whatever it is. And then all you hear is that one negative thing or that one critique. And you start to hold on to those things. And so I think it's kind of like finding a way to heal from, and I don't like to call everything traumas. I think we have a lot of little wounds that are kind of like little paper cuts that then become something bigger. And that becomes how our perceived identity for ourselves. And so rewriting that story takes time, and it takes moments where you have to get out of your comfort zone and just reflect and say, all right, here's what I accomplished. I'm feeling like imposter syndrome. Just saying, which is another version of this, of being seen, is just saying, you have to learn how to love yourself first. And that comes with a lot of work, a lot of self work. Yeah.
It's so true. It is wild. Something that we shouldn't come with, like, in my mind, shouldn't be hard for us to love ourselves.
Yeah.
But like I've spent since I got injured, I was 26. So I've spent almost 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years on this like journey of like straight up, peeling back layers of the onion and healing and getting hurt and working through it and all the things. And I love what you said though. I love what we were just talking about and the vulnerabilities and that fear of being seen. That's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge.
It's almost like we have to, in order to love ourselves, to be seen, we have to kind of love ourselves and allow ourselves the space to say, I'm safe, and to also build an environment and people around you that make you feel safe to then experiment with opening up more.
Yes.
Not all of us, unfortunately, have that. But I think also there was something else I wanted to say. Writing down your values,
Yeah,
and getting very crystal clear on what they are,
I love that.
It takes you far.
Mm-hmm.
And once you know your values and you lead again with conviction, and every single day you find a way to show up for yourself. Some people, especially, like the gym is a really good example of this. It's like, I love working out. Working out has actually been that one thing that's like my anchor point. It kind of resets my mind. So if you're in a position where you're afraid of being seen, or you are feeling imposter syndrome, or you're kind of just in your head and you're at this spiraling place and it's not really building any momentum for you to be there, what can you do to disrupt that pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that I love and I recommend is just movement. Everybody's talking about that these days. Mel Robbins, lots of people on podcasts, but it's just so true. And what I love to do is I love to go to the gym, walk on the treadmill, go outside, be in nature, having fitness goals and showing up for myself. It's more than just, I like to call it, it's more than just having discipline. It's having devotion. Like, what do you want to devote yourself to? And that really, instead of saying, oh, I have to get up, I have to go do this for myself, I have to journal today, I have to make this story on Instagram or this post for myself because that's what everybody's doing, and I know I have to do it for my business, but I'm so afraid, and it's the fear of being seen. But you have to choose, is that fear it's stopping you clearly from going the extra mile and expanding into the path where you're supposed to be led. And you just have to have the discipline, or what I like to say is the devotion to make that commitment to yourself, to say, I want to improve. And it's little steps too. It doesn't have to be these big grandiose gestures for your life. Like, I'm going to make this amazing video. Start small and don't have like these high expectations. Just kind of say, what are the little things that I can do today to show up for myself? And what's one thing that is a little uncomfortable that I can do today to show up to myself? For some people, maybe that is going to the gym, because they might have various insecurities. They might have social anxiety. I know a lot of us suffered from that during COVID and after COVID. It took years, and the world is still kind of recovering from that, but we've kind of locked ourselves up in this online world. And even now, it can be really hard to put ourselves online. Remember how easy it was to say something over the phone or online 10 years ago, and people would say, oh, they're only doing that because it's easy to say how you feel when you're behind a screen. Not anymore, because the digital world has become another reality for us.
Yes.
And we really now are at a point where we need to bring ourselves back to that human place and connect to ourselves and find our values, find what we're able to, little steps and big steps, take that might be scary, and really devote ourselves to something in our values.
I'm taking the devotion.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, Sarah, thank you for all of that. What are you up to now? We talked about pivoting, and I would like to hear about what you're up to.
Yeah, so I help women. I'm basically a business therapist is what they like to joke around and say. So I work with women one-on-one to do monthly consulting calls, and I help them navigate, organizing their business, their revenue strategies. I like to say that any entrepreneur can find basically any answer online these days, or using AI or ChatGPT, but it's going to give you a bunch of different answers. And so where I come in is I help women kind of really understand which one of those answers is really in alignment with them and their goals and their truth.
So is that the pivot?
It is, yeah. So I had grown an agency, a small agency, and I was working that up for about 7 years. And I've worked with hundreds of different brands, and I love it.
Wow.
And it's always going to be a part of the work that I do now. I took a lot of the work that I was doing and I put it into the lessons I've learned into the work I'm doing now with women as a consultant and a brand photographer.
Wow.
Yeah.
What did you, with your agency, what were you doing?
Marketing, social media, content creation, commercial photography.
Wow.
It was a whole gamut.
So
you
would create the content for different businesses?
Yeah, we would go in and we would talk to the business owners and ask them, like, what do they want? If they could have anything, any success for their business, what would it be? How do they want to be perceived? What's the purpose behind the content that we are about to create for you? And then help them strategically navigate a plan for their social media and what that would look like. And then we would go on set and actually film that content and then manage posting for them. And a lot of people don't realize how much work that is.
Oh,
and I genuinely believe in quality control. And at some point, I was asking myself, is this the path that is truly bringing me fulfillment? And a lot of my clients, some of the business owners I was working with at a larger capacity, they were asking me questions. Like, they were asking me for guidance. And some of them were saying, why don't I just hire you as my consultant? Why don't we just meet monthly? I want to meet more with you. And it just became very aware. One of the girls that I had on my team, she looks at me and she's like, you should just do some consulting. Like, you should do consulting, Sarah. And it just clicked with me. And so last year in 2025, 2020, I was going to take this hiatus and I was going to go traveling. That did not work.
Nope.
So 2025 ended up being the year where I did some traveling and self-discovery, and it really led me to this rebrand where I'm finally ready to say, this is who I am. This is what I've learned from making mistakes and getting dirty and not being perfect at everything that I was striving to be so perfect. And I was striving to be that parent figure that, that mom that I thought I needed growing up. When in reality, the mother that I had was so perfect because she made me into the woman that I am now. And I'm finally, now that I'm 30, I've got this, I see this pivot as, and I know a lot of women are pivoting these days, but I see this pivot as a blank canvas. It's this beautiful, big, white blank canvas. And it's this opportunity for me to start fresh, but with all of this found knowledge, because now I know how I want to do it better.
I love it. Here's what's coming up for me. What is a pivot to you? What does it mean to you?
Yeah. A pivot is like you're going through life, and then all of a sudden something kind of like, for me, this is for me how I knew I had a pivot. I felt this overwhelming urge to just say, this is not working anymore. And it was something that kind of, the feeling was leading up to this pivot, where pivoting to me is not necessarily saying, oh, I have to start completely fresh, but it's saying, what do I have to do to go in a direction that feels more in alignment with the person I want to be 5 years from now, a year from now. I try not to plan it in 5 years or a decade. I try to plan within a year. I don't like to forecast too much outside of a year, because I feel like there's so much power in being present and really working in on this journey of what can I do this year to really make an impact, to be more of the person or the life I want to live. And I try to, instead of having material things or strive for material goals, which it's fine if you do, but I try to pick words to strive for that are foundational words, like value words. This year, and this is not even just for this year, but I feel like in this next chapter, I want security and stability as my base. And I think this goes back to building this foundation where when you're first building a business, it can be a little chaotic. You're everywhere and you're trying so many different things, and things are working and then they're not working. And that just is being a business owner. But when you're able to hit a certain phase after like 5 or 6 years of being in business, 10 years of being in business, then you start realizing what's working, and you can kind of pivot or move towards and refine. I think pivot, refine, you're refining um, what you're doing to move in a direction that feels in more of alignment with where you want to be.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And here's the thing that keeps coming up for me as we wrap up. We've heard a lot of things. You really inspired me with your life, and this is what's really coming up to me. Is it just seems like you are a very in alignment, meaning like I know there's times where you've obviously been out of alignment, but it just seems like you get yourself into a place where the universe can speak to you very easily. Like you said, well, I got to a point and my clients enjoyed asking me questions, and then they're like, I'm just going to hire you as a consultant. And then, one of the women who worked for you were like, Sarah, why don't you just do consulting? Okay, well, that's the universe screaming at you. How do you get yourself in this place? Because this is what all the women want to know. Like, Sarah, how do we do that?
Yeah. Well, a good example of that, there was a young woman, maybe in her early 20s. She was maybe like 25 years old, 24. And I saw her at a cafe in downtown, and she was doing content creation. And I walk up to her because I remember doing that in my early 20s for different businesses. And it was so much fun. And I, was questioning myself, and am I doing this right? But it was just so much fun. And I remember feeling in alignment with when I was doing that thing. Did it bring me joy? I had to ask myself that question. Yes. And it just so happened to also be something that if I just asked, if I just walked up to the business owner, I said, I would like to try to do this for you. If I can do this for you, can I have you as a client and do this for you more often? And so a lot of people are just afraid to ask. And so, or they're afraid to take a leap because of, again, that deeply rooted faith in themselves that they have to find. It's like a muscle that you have to just build and build and build. And this young lady, I approached her and I said, oh my goodness, are you doing content? She said, yes, I am. And she lit right up. And I said, is this your full-time thing? And she said, oh my goodness, I wish it was. I really wish it was. I said, well, how long have you been doing this? She said 6 years.
Wow.
And I was like, so you're already doing it. You just have to dive in. And it was like this light bulb. We don't give ourselves enough credit. We don't give ourselves enough credit. And it's like really taking the time to just reflect. And even if that means surrounding yourself with friends or with people that maybe are in your social circle, and you take them out to coffee and you're going to ask them a really uncomfortable question. I've never really been afraid of appropriate confrontation, like subtle confrontation. It doesn't have to be harsh, but just asking people, like ask them when you go on coffee, like, how do you perceive me? Like, what is my personal brand? If you were to think of me, what would those first few words be to describe me? You can get a lot from that. Or even asking your close-knit friends, like, what are to take you through some of your successes, to help you qualify yourself again in your brain that you are capable of making that leap, that jump. And if you have to, bring it back to the basics, and you have to write a pros and cons list.
Wow.
Which,
yeah.
Honestly, if I do have one bit of advice, a pros and cons list, it's so simple. It goes a really long way.
Wow.
It goes a really long way. But reflect. And I think that another thing to think about is, like, life is very short. Life is very short. So, but it's the longest thing you're ever going to do, right?
It's the longest thing you're ever going to do. Yeah.
And so you have to kind of ask yourself, if you're in a place where maybe you have a corporate job and you're feeling miserable, or maybe you're again, you don't realize it yet, but there's going to be a pivot on the horizon because the universe is testing you. It's seeing if you're ready for this. And it's seeing if you are also willing to open up the door to allow for things that are more in alignment with you and your higher self to come through. So it's about opening up that door and saying, I'm ready for this. And if you have to have people in your life to kind of remind you, or if you have to journal out, your qualifications, why the things that you've done in the past that would be just something that says, I can do this. Like, write those things down. Remind yourself.
So good.
Yeah.
Sarah, this is really good. The girls are going to want to know, where do they find you?
On social media. I am, again, pivoting, and I'm in this beautiful chapter now where I would love to start showing up for myself, because the past decade was showing up for the people that I admire, the clients that I love and I want to work hard for. But I think social media, you can find me on Instagram at Sarah Sullivan Consulting or sarahsullivanphotography.me.
And we'll have all that in the show notes. So just if you're like, okay, just scroll down, look in the show notes, click follow, go see Sarah, hang out with her. Sarah, I'm really excited because Sarah's going to be taking some photos and doing some videography at the event in April in Bangor at the Hilton Garden Inn. The information is going to be in the show notes as well. If you want to attend that, you get early bird tickets. They are about to go up. So by the time you hear this, you've got days before it goes up. So the lowest price it's going to be, click the show notes. We have that. Sarah, I'm so excited to have you at this event. We're going to have, I'm really looking to make an impact just as you. So I'm so excited we partnered on like having you there. And
I've been watching like all the videos of what you do with women, and it's so powerful because it's like this physical reminder, and it's also showing them the tools that they need to always be able to find themselves in that strength that we all hold within us. I like to say, like, we have and we hold like 1,000 lives and 1,000 hats within us, but are we able to access them? Like, if you're able to access them, that's so powerful. And so I can't wait to see you do that.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have you. Sarah, this has been wonderful. I can't thank you enough. And she's an asset, ladies. And the few gentlemen who listen, we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the She's an Asset podcast. If you wouldn't mind, could you please share this out? The only way we grow and I can get this out to as many people as possible is with your help. So we're kind of in this together. And the good thing is I know you have my back. So I want to say thank you and ask for you to share the show. And if we're not hanging out in the socials, I hope that you'll come and hang out with me. I'm Autumn Clifford pretty much everywhere. Thank you so much. See you next time.